Okay, this is now tarot lesson number 20, and I have a few things I'd like to go over. One is Ariel. In the last video, I talked about here 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 going together in some way because they've all got the letter V as part of the Roman numeral. And Ariel left a comment where you've got the Emperor is material and the Hierophant spiritual. The lovers can be a combination of the two or complementary colours idea. And then I forget what she said about the Chariot and the Justice card. And I want to make the point that when you come up with it, it's good information, but then you forget about it, because it's as if you try to remember what you come up with, then it can be like you stop, and it goes back to that idea of the William Blake poem about if you try to bind joy, then you destroy the winged life. And so it seems to me that if you, by all means, come up with ideas about of what a particular card or combination of cards can mean, but then don't try and hold it in your mind or try to remember it, because if you try to remember it, you stop. You stop your thinking, you stop, and it's like you're binding joy. Whereas if you can let it go and trust that it's in your mind, you thought of it or you read it and it's there, and it'll come back when it's necessary or when it's important. Because where is this? Okay, so we've got the Emperor and the Emperor and the Hierophant. Let me just move this here. I've got these three. So the Emperor can be materialism or materialistic, and the Hierophant can be spiritual, and the lovers can be the two, let's say. So maybe what you've got is somebody wants to know about something, and they're talking about big ideas and airy-fairy ideas and so on, and the Emperor is in the spread, and you say, okay, this is all very well what you're talking about, but you also have to be practical and down to earth. Maybe you're too unrealistic, or you might be being too unrealistic with what you're thinking about, but the presence of the Emperor is an indication it's important to be realistic and down to earth and practical and think it through and make sure it's going to work. Whereas you could have the opposite, where somebody, all they're doing is talking about the facts and today and what's going on now, and the Hierophant may be in the answer, and you say to them, okay, by all means think about the practicalities of the situation, but because the Hierophant is here, it's also important to remember, think about the purpose. Why are you doing what it is that you're doing? And what's the spiritual reason for whatever it happens to be? So let's say it's Ariel talking. And so she had the idea that this is material, this is spiritual, but she doesn't try to remember that. But when it comes up and it's appropriate, then the idea of the Emperor being practical or by being influenced by or interested in material benefit and stuff, whereas the Hierophant is more interested in developing understanding, we could say. So the Hierophant can mean, in one particular question, don't just deal with the facts, but it's important to have an idea of the purpose and why you're doing something. But we have to remember the question, because if somebody wants to know, am I going to get into university, or should I go back to university, and you get the Hierophant, the answer is yes, because of the nature of the card. It's yes, you're going to go there. It's a good idea to go and study. You don't need to talk about spiritual purposes. So the idea of the Hierophant being spiritual or spiritually oriented isn't really relevant or important if the question is, am I going to go back to university, or am I going to go to college and get some kind of advanced degree? So we have to remember it's not just the card and the meaning, it's the question that was asked as well. So the other thing I was thinking about, I can't remember when, last time or the time before, I put the lovers is here, and that's Adam and Eve, and we've got the Hierophant and the Emperor. And because Eve is on this side of the picture and the Hierophant and the Emperor here, I wondered, maybe an idea that we connect with these two cards is they are not, because when they're upright, they're not easily distracted. They're not easily tempted, because we're told that Eve was tempted. She was given this shiny object, fascinating, and this will give you magical results. But the Hierophant and the Emperor, because they're on this side, maybe they're not as easily seduced away from what it is that they want to do. So somebody may be talking, and they're wondering, they're a bit afraid that maybe they'll get involved in something and they won't be able to see it through to the end. If either of these two cards is there, you can say, it's okay, you'll take care of it, you'll be able to do it. And you've got a reason for saying you will be able to do it, not just because you're trying to be encouraging. And I think that's important about the tarot, that you look at the card, you take your lead from what the card is, and you talk. Whereas if the Hierophant's reversed, or the Emperor is reversed, you might find yourself saying to the person, and watch out you don't get seduced. Watch out that you don't get distracted by something phenomenal or fantastic, or get rich quick scheme. It's not going to work. I mean, sometimes it does work, but in this case, because one of these cards is upside down, I think the indication is it's not going to work for you. Okay, so the next point is having to do with meanings and so on. So we've got 78 cards in a deck. I've got these for late. I can't remember. I may not even use them. We've got 78 cards, and any card can be upright or reversed. So if we have a question and we pick one card, then you've got 1 in 156 meanings, right? Because 156 meanings for each for the whole deck, because you've got the 3 of Batons upright, the 3 of Batons reversed. So let's say that's 2 basic meanings, and we've got 78 cards. So we're dealing with 156 meanings that we might have to learn. But let's say you pick 3 cards. So now instead of having one of 156 meanings to pick, I don't know what the numbers are, because we've got any 3 from 78 or any 3 from 156, but this reversed and this reversed and that upright is different from this upright, that reverse and that upright, and it's different again from that and that. We've got all these different combinations of 3 cards, even just 3 cards, and the order can be different, because if you know what I mean, if you start with this and go to these 2, that's one story. If you start with this and go to these 2, that's a different story. So I don't think it's possible to learn all the meanings, and that's why I think we need to learn how to read, or how to make sense of the cards that come up. And so you do that, I think, by looking at a card, coming up with 1 or 2 ideas about what it might mean or what's going on in the card, and you write them down, and then you look at them a couple of days later and see if you can do more with it. And if you can, good. If you can't, you don't try to make it happen. It goes back to the idea of Ariel. She came up with, or she knows about, or has the idea about the Emperor being material, the Hierophant being spiritual, but she doesn't make herself remember that idea and try to apply it in every case. She knows it's somewhere in her memory bank, and she keeps her fingers crossed or trusts that if it's going to be appropriate to talk about the emperor being materialistic or being down to earth and practical, then the thought will come back into her mind. So in a lot of ways, you can't really, I've got various videos of it, don't learn tarot card meanings. And I think it has to do with that there's too many to learn. You can never learn them all. If you're learning human anatomy, okay, you learn the names of the bones and the muscles and what goes where and it's posterior and anterior and blah, blah, blah. It's a limited set of meanings and possibilities and names. But with the tarot, even with 3 cards, because is this the past and that's the present and that's the future? Or are all 3 the future? And do they come in chronological order? This followed by this, followed by this? Or are all 3 part of the same thing that's going to happen? All of which gives you a huge, not infinite, but almost infinite, might as well be infinite, because we're never going to learn all of this. You have to, or you don't have to do anything, but if you can learn to read or to make sense of the card, then you know what you're going to come up with answers, correct answers or relevant answers for the question at that time. And the next bit is, I think I had these numbers. Okay, so here we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they've got a V in them, right, for 5. But when you get to 9, you've got an X, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And these 5 go together because we've got 10 minus 1, 10 plus 1, plus 2, plus 3. But they all relate to the number 10 in some way, whereas these all relate to the number 5. So, and then we're going to get 14, which has got an X and a V, and we'll look at that next time, maybe. But we've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And I wanted to make one last point here to do with in this one, the V can be the Hierophant. So we may think that the Hierophant is the key to this row. Although, maybe it's the Lovers, because it's the one in the middle. Because we've got an odd number of numbers, 5. So we've got a midpoint. And that may be an indication that the Lovers is actually the key to this particular row. Or maybe the underlying reason is the Hierophant, but the more obvious meaning, or the more obvious dynamic, let me say, is the Lovers. Whereas here we've got 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So maybe the 10, the Wheel of Fortune, is the key card for this little row. Or maybe it's the number 11, the Strength card, I'm saying, not Justice. Maybe the Strength card is important. But it occurred to me here. So we've got 10. What is 10? The X. Is 10 that? Where you've got a V upright and a V upside down. So when you come to the Wheel of Fortune or the number 10, you're dealing with receiving from above and distributing. And that's what the Wheel of Fortune is about, that you receive, but you're also meant to distribute. Or you reach up or look up and gather, but you're not meant to hold on to it forever or even for any length of time. You're also meant to do something with it, because it's a wheel, goes round and round. So is the number 10 or the X like that? So you're dealing with the Hierophant upright and the Hierophant reversed in some way. Or is the number 10 that and that two straight lines crossing over. I'm not saying there's a right answer or a wrong answer, but it's the kind of thing I think if you spend a little bit of time wondering about the X, the cross here, or the V upside down and upright, it'll give you thoughts that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and it'll give you ideas that will combine with other thoughts that you have, and you'll end up with a greater insight. Because I think what we're supposed to do, or what we're doing with this kind of exercise and with the tarot itself, we want to become better informed, or be more informed, so we've got more to say, which means we can talk sensibly about any card for any question, because we've spent time wondering about the V upright and the V reversed. Okay, I was going to pick cards, but I don't think I've got time now. I don't want to go on too long, so I will at this point stop. And so that was it. Thank you for watching. And because I finished for this, I'm going to do a quick shuffle. I think that's what you do with shuffling. So if I'm going to do a reading for somebody, I do a full shuffle with all the cutting and gathering up and reversing cards and so on. But at the end, before I put cards away, a quick shuffle, which sort of is a full stop at the end of the sentence, and then I can happily roll things up, and that's it gone, or that's it away, out of the way until the next time. So thank you very much for watching, and today is Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll be back on Saturday. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye-bye.